Hello there folks. I'll say it's been a hot second, but welcome back to Nature Explained, the best show for explaining wildlife on the internet. Right after the WWE, but slightly before Countryfile. I'm, as always, your gracious host Jake, and today I have a bit of a treat for you as we're diving deep into darkest Peru to learn about the only species of bear found on the whole of the South American continent, but has a fascinating lineage that includes the most fearsome bear in our planet's history. And for some reason, these bears are obsessed with marmalade. With all that said and done, I say we get right into looking at the subject of today's video, the spectacled bear. The spectacled bear. Hard to believe that it was once related to the largest species of bear to ever exist. These guys are found exclusively in South America, ranging from western Venezuela, following the Andes south, to northwestern Argentina. And they are famed for their adaptability, living in both scrub deserts and some report place them in the snow-topped regions of the Andes, some 16,000 feet above sea level. However, they are best adapted to life in the rainforest in the 1,600 to 13,000 foot range. The main reason for this is that at this range there is typically more resources which can be drawn upon in the environment, thus making this habitat more attractive. While they do not hibernate like their cousins in the north, they don't need to. Instead, they tend to migrate from lower lands to higher elevations at various points in the year. The exact cause of this yearly migration is unknown, but perhaps mating could be a factor, alongside the general wet and dry seasons. One factor that makes it pretty hard to study them is the habitat. It should go without saying, but the Andes Mountains are a bit more than a mild climb up a hill, and thus increases the challenges in relation to studying any animal that lives exclusively in this region. The second issue is that the spectacled bear is extremely shy, and to be fair, to have survived this long, they kinda need to be, especially when dealing with humans. What this means is that if the spectacled bear hears humans coming, it will climb up a tree, taking full advantage of their arboreal physiology, and staying up there until the humans have left the area. They're rather unique among bears because they're able to build platforms in trees, where they will rest, observe the surroundings, and use it as an aid in camouflage. And they'll also sleep in it, which is very similar to many species of primates. This reflects the amount of time the spectacled bear spends on the forest floor, which is very little, preferring to spend the majority of its time in the trees. More so than the American black bear. Because of this adaptation to the trees, they are significantly smaller than their cousins, both to the north, and their ancestor, the short-faced cave bear, being the third smallest species of bear on our planet, with males weighing around the same as an amateur sumo wrestler. They've also developed longer front legs, possibly to help them climb trees by providing more reach, and also allowing them to reach further when grabbing food. Alongside this, they possess non-retractable claws, allowing them to maintain their grip when climbing. When you look at the spectacled bear, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that they were American black, because when you look at them side by side, there are a few obvious similarities, mainly the colour of the fur. The reason for it being black in both populations is likely to aid in camouflage. In this case, it allows the spectacled bear to disappear into their forest environments easily, both on the ground and in the trees. Both also possess very thick coats of fur, which allows them to survive in cold habitats they may come across in their environment. One of the main differences is the lighter coloured fur found on the spectacled bear's eyes and chest. Each spectacled bear has a different pattern, which is very similar to a human fingerprint in its uniqueness, and is likely a way to tell one another apart, because their eyesight is pretty unreliable, so it makes sense to have a clear patch which tells others who you are. And, if nothing else, it makes life easier for researchers telling individuals apart. What makes up for their poor sense of sight is their extremely strong nose, which allows spectacled bears to identify food easily. Though to be fair, their diet is highly varied and can include 300 different types of plants found across their range, from cacti to fruit which has fallen onto the forest floor, making them more herbivorous than most bears. Despite this, they still engage in the occasional meat eating, with it making up 8% of their diet. A lot of their meat comes from scavenging, however, they're not above making the occasional kill themselves, mainly coming from rabbits and mice. though they are capable of killing livestock and tapirs if they set their minds to it. So I guess the short-faced cave bear never really left them after all, as when they first migrated to South America, their dental remains suggested that they were mostly carnivores, although their hunting methods have probably changed somewhat due to their size. The spectacled bear will seek to drag its prey to the ground and eat it alive until it has been killed, at which point, if possible, it will drag it up a tree and into safety, allowing the spectacled bear to eat the kill at its pleasure. Despite this opportunism, it's not that common, and feeding is often a time where they actually get to see other members of their species, because while they live mostly solitary lives, they are often seen together during feeding in relatively small groups. Spectacled bears do have defined territories, with those of the males normally overlapping multiple females, and both genders' ranges will shrink during the more abundant wet season and expand during the dry season when food becomes less abundant. If two spectacled bears were theoretically to meet in the wild, unless one was purposely posing a threat to the other or to a mother and her cubs, a conflict is highly unlikely and will probably result in the two individuals going their own separate ways. Aside from moments like this, they'll spend the vast majority of their lives in isolation, wandering their territory, living their best lives until the mating season comes around. What do we know about their mating season? Well, to be honest, not much. Believe it or not, living in one of the highest places on Earth, surrounded by dense cloud forest, makes it hard to learn stuff about you. And when scientists can't agree if these bears are diurnal, crepuscular, or nocturnal, I don't think our understanding in the wild is going to be amazing. With that all being said, we don't know nothing, but a lot of our knowledge comes from breeding these animals in captivity. So, take a lot of what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. As we understand it, they can mate any time of year, but normally this occurs from April through to June, aligning with the beginning of the wet season. How do they pick a mate? Literally no idea. Probably a combination of vocalizations, scent and scat markings, and maybe some form of play to test physical ability. Spectacled bears are among the loudest bears out there, using a huge variety of different vocalizations. I'll be honest, kinda sounds like something out of Jurassic Park. Don't believe me? Well, here's an example. You see what I mean? Really sounds like a T-Rex. Regardless, that's all hypothesis, and we still haven't observed courtship in the wild. What we do know is that they will stay together for around 2 weeks, mating multiple times throughout, after which the male's job is done and he makes like the roadrunner and leaves. He is very likely to mate again, most likely with other females in his territory. Spectacled bears are believed to be monoestrous. No idea what that means? Completely fair, I didn't either. It basically means that they have one heat season per breeding cycle. It is also thought the spectacled bears are able to delay implantation, which is why in captivity, gestation can range from 168 days to 155 days. Normally, cubs are born a few months before December, because that's when the fruit will be at its most abundant. In the meantime, they will need to be weaned and grow. They will be born in the mother's nest on the ground, perhaps in a cave or under a large log. Normally, there are 2 cubs, but the maximum record is 4. These numbers are often thought to reflect the mother's access to food and overall health. The mother will stay with her cubs while they learn to walk and also open their eyes because, believe it or not, they're born blind. Once they've ticked these 2 basic boxes, she will leave them in the den while she goes to feed, before eventually bringing them out herself. During their cub years, males will grow significantly faster than their female siblings, reflecting the fact the spectacled bears display the most sexual dimorphism of all the bears. Once they leave the den, over the course of the next year, they will learn how to build nests, which foods are safe and which are not. It is also during this period that they are at most risk, not just from the big cats of the Andes, but other spectacled bears, as males are more than willing to cannibalize cubs, even their own. After a year, they will either leave their mother or be forced out, and will have to find a territory of their own. They will spend the next few years establishing themselves and growing before attempting to mate. In zoos, this occurs between the ages of 4 to 7 years old, with most females giving birth at around 5. In the wild, it's somewhat more debated, and again, we don't really know. Males can reproduce for basically all of their lives, while females will stop sometime before death. Typically, both genders will live for around 20 years in the wild if all goes well. Spectacled bears are, at the end of the day, still bears. So, the list of predators is somewhat limited. The principal one is the mountain lion, which shares a range with the spectacled bear, and most conflicts emerge from competition over food, particularly scraps. Pumas will mostly target cubs. The only other source of competition really comes from jaguars, but this is much rarer due to the very limited overlap in range, as jaguars are typically found in the Amazon basin at lower altitudes. There are some reports suggesting spectacled bears will avoid them. There isn't enough data to definitely confirm this. You may be surprised to know that there is little archaeological evidence linking the spectacled bears to pre-contact Andean civilizations. One possible reason is that they were seen as sacred and thus not to be depicted, with one notable exception, El Lazon, a deity associated with fertility and power. You also have the Ukulu, a half-human, half-spectacled bear figure from Andean folklore, said to travel Peru and Bolivia solving disputes. They were also notorious for kidnapping women, which is where a lot of the superstition comes from in regards to spectacled bears. And the Ukulu are still revered in Bolivia today, with festivals celebrating them, with people dressing up, climbing mountains to collect ice, bringing it down used in traditional healing practices. And of course, there's the most famous spectacled bear, Paddington. Funnily enough, he was originally going to be from darkest Africa, until the author was told that there were no bears in Africa, upon which he went to visit the London Zoo in 1958, and of all the bears they had on display, spectacled bears were chosen because they were the most exotic option. Spectacled bears are highly cautious around people, preferring to avoid us completely. And it's telling that the only human to have ever been killed by a spectacled bear was a poacher that was killed when the bear landed on it after it had already been shot. However, increasing deforestation has led to habitat loss and fragmentation of their population, creating risks of genetic bottlenecks. Conflicts with farmers also occur, as spectacled bears will often eat crops like corn and occasionally kill livestock, although it's debated how often they're actually responsible for these killings and whether it could be some other animal in the ecosystem. As a result, they are often killed in retaliation, or for traditional medicine, or simply for sport, with it being a common practice among the privileged elites of Andean society. Alongside this, you've also got climate change, which adds even greater pressure. There is thought to be fewer than 10,000 individuals left, with some estimates as low as 2,500, making them in desperate need of protection, which is slowly coming. They are the youngest bear species, diverging from the main Ursa genus some 10 to 13 million years ago, and losing them would not only mean the extinction of a species, the extinction of an entire genus, major ecological damage, as they play a key role in seed distribution. And would you look at that, we reached the end of the video. I'd like to thank you for sticking around. If you've enjoyed it, well, you know what to do, you know 5. But it would be greatly appreciated if you would hit that like and subscribe button, and it means a lot to me. Hopefully, I'll be back a lot sooner with an animal I'll reckon everyone's at least heard of, but didn't know they existed in this particular place. Until then, check out these videos on other fascinating animals, and I'll see you in the next one.